chiropractor, right?
Right.
And he was also a pilot.
Oh yes, yes, he was a pilot. He had when we first met, we didn't have a place to live. We went to live with his uncle in Jamaica, in Long Island, and he decided he was going to build a house.
Well, we got a picture. Well, go ahead. Tell us the story before we show the picture.
So he asked me, you know, we put our few cents together and we went to the bank and we explained to them what we had in mind, and they said it could be done. And we had to build a foundation first and then a frame and so on. So we did fine. So my husband at that time had his office in New York. So he went to the library in New York and he asked for where do they have books.
In New York City.
New York City. Where do they have books that tells you how to build a house? And the librarian says, I think you better get a contractor. He says, I can't afford that. So he went and got the information about building a house, and we started to do that.
You said also you used a Sears catalog as kind of a guide.
Right, and the picture was wrong. We had to turn it upside down and take a picture of it because it was only like $1 or a couple of dollars, but we couldn't afford to throw it out.
Right.
So anyway, we
do have a picture of the house.
Yeah.
There's the house that essentially.
That's the house we built.
You and he
the
built.
The first one.
You and he built together, right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
You used a electrician, I think you said, didn't you? Or?
No, we used a mason to build a fireplace, and someone. In those days, we didn't have sheetrock, so we had to have a person to do the plaster work.
Other than that, you did it all yourself?
Everything else we did.
That's amazing.
He was amazing. And as a matter of fact, when the inspector came, at that time he was still in the reserve in the army. He thought we'd have to fight the Russians. And he didn't want to lose his commission.
Okay.
So he stayed in the army.
So this house was in Long Island, right?
In Long Island, Huntington.
Huntington, Long Island.
Yes. And the inspector came in, he was shaking his head, and I'm worried stiff that perhaps the code, you know, was more rigid and we didn't pass. And he said, what did this guy think he was building? The Chrysler building? And I said, why? He says, well, he's got cables. He has, you know, the electrical cables, everything that New York City recommended for people to build their home, not Long Island. It was much less rigid.
So the code's more stricter, right?
But he didn't know, he had no idea. But we built this. This is how we were able to start building a capital. When we sold that house and we made some money and we built another house. And
you built another house?
In Huntington, but that other house, we didn't do the work ourselves.
Okay.
We were able to
the money, the capital to...
Yeah, we did some things, but most of it was done by professionals. And after that, he thought he could have an office, a chiropractic office, in that house. But as it turned out, we were on a hill, and people would be doing 60 miles an hour, and they couldn't see his office.
Right.
And we didn't think of that. And as a result, he couldn't have an office there. He didn't do well at all. It didn't even start. So I was working in Hewlett, and we figured the best thing for us to do is to move to Hewlett.
Okay.
So we bought a house in Hewlett, which we fixed, and we put a beauty shop attached to the house.
So that's where your shop was for many years?
That's where it was for close to 40 years.
Oh, really?
And he drove to New York every day to his office in the city.
Which is where he did his
he was
practices.
off Park Avenue. He was in a very good area. It was rented, you know, and he had a wonderful clientele. But my relatives wanted him to raise his prices because he was very successful. And he said, I didn't go into this work to make money out of human misery. And he refused to do that.
Now you had 2 children. Well, you still
Right.
have 2 children.
Yes.
And there they are as youngsters. Tell us about your
Right.
children.
Well, the first child, which I didn't want the children, and my husband said to me, we have this lovely house and we have no one to share it with.
Right.
So we had the first one. Then when he was about...
Brian is
Brian was
right.
about 2.5, 3 years old. He says, you know, when this little boy grows up, we're going to be old people and he's going to be stuck all by himself to take care of us. So we had a second one.
So Tom talked you into getting married and to having a first child.
Absolutely.
Second child.
He knew what to do. That's
Yeah.
why I said he guided me just like
Yeah.
a parent would.
Right.
And the children knew that we were always in cahoots, they used to call it.
Now your second child was Danielle, right?
Yes.
Now tell us where they are today.
Danielle is in Spring Lake. She has a lovely house there. And she works, she's been 21 years in Jersey Shore Hospital. And they've been wonderful to her. And she has 3 children. And my son is the CEO of DHL, and they're based in Chicago.
So that's where he is, in Chicago.
Yeah. And he travels all over the world all the time.
Oh, that's nice.
And when he was a little boy, he always wanted to do something different all the time. And he would ask my husband, what are we going to do next? And he says, I'm going to go on a tree and hide from you. Because he was always...
Now how many children does Brian have?
Brian has 4.
So you have 7 grandchildren.
Right, correct.
Any great-grandchildren yet?
No, not yet. My grandson, the oldest one, got married last November.
Oh, okay.
He's fixing his own house.
He's building a house?
Yeah, he's in Chicago.
It's a genetic thing in your family.
Well, not only that, but my husband taught his children, and his children taught their children.
Oh, that's nice.
He knew how to do everything, electrical work. And when my daughter was going to school, they wanted her to learn how to sew, and she didn't want to learn how to sew. So my husband was listening to me trying to convince her, and he said, you know, if you want her to learn how to sew, you may as well have Brian learn how to sew, because she's a better carpenter than he is. So
both of your kids are very handy with their hands.
Absolutely. I don't think they could have a house if they weren't,
Right.
because of the money that they were able to save.
Right.
You know, they do their own electrical work. And now my children's children can do their own things.
That's nice.
So it is. And that comes from my husband, who knew nothing about these things except that he learned.
And he knew where to learn.
Yes, he
right.
used to say to me, if you can read, you can do anything, because the instructions are right there for you.
He was a smart man, Tom.
Oh, nothing held him back.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, we got some pictures of your family. Before we get to that, just to finish up your career, you ended up essentially with what, about a 40-year career in the beauty business?
Oh, yes.
Most of the time owning
Yes.
your own business, and most of that time in Huntington. Is that right?
No, in Hewlett.
In Hewlett, that's right, in Hewlett.
Right.
And it was, I presume, a satisfying career.
Oh, it was very worthwhile, and it paid off very well. And coming to America, my husband was 17, and he had not 5 cents to his name, and neither did I, at the same age, at different times. And yet, we were able to make a life that is been so wonderful. And I wish that more Americans would realize what a country of opportunity this is.
It is, indeed.
It is a fantastic country.
It's amazing. I'm sure you obviously could not have imagined when you were 4 years old in Haiti, what your life, how it would unfold.
No.
And it just,
I often wonder if my parents could look back and see they would never have believed what.
You've told me, you say if your parents could look back, you've told me that you like to think that they can have a...
Oh yes, that would be some reward, because all my brothers and sisters did well,
Right.
every one of them, and every one of them, they died and left money to their children. They left a substantial amount of money to their children. And this is the kind of country it is.
Right.
When I was in Morocco, I wanted to work to earn a couple of dollars, a couple of francs, and instead they told me they could give me a bag of food for lunch to bring to my family. So I said fine, because
take that.
food was important then
Right,
also, But this country is amazing
Yeah.
and absolutely wonderful.
Well, you made a lot out of your life, Paulette.
Well,
But before we get too emotional here, though,
Right.
we got some more pictures. We got a picture of you. This is in the New York Times.
right.
It has nothing to do really with your business.
No.
This is during the 70s, during the energy crisis, I
Right.
think. And the gist of the article was that you were heating your home on $2 a day, $2 a day.
One of
Out of
the
a-
people who was instrumental in getting me that was a writer for the New York Times, and she wanted me to be able to tell that.
Yeah, okay, well, it was a nice story. I saw the article.
Yeah.
Now we got a couple of family pictures here. This is.
This
now tell
is
us
in
about
Sweden.
this picture. This is in Sweden, right?
Right.
Uh,
And my daughter's family's on one side, and then my son's family's on the other side.
oh, that's a nice picture. Then we got a picture taken. This is your anniversary. Where was this picture taken?
This was taken right here in New Jersey at the Old Pond. The Old Pond,
Where is it?
Old Mill?
Old Mill.
Oh, Mill. Okay.
Old Mill.
Thanks,
You're
Jane.
so right. Thank you. Yeah, that's where it was.
And this
we
was
had it.
this is your 50th anniversary, or
50. Yes.
and your whole family's around the table.
My
Now,
family and some of my friends
now,
from.
this is really the only picture of Tom we have, so you can't see him too well. But it's a nice looking group you have there, Paulette.
Yes. Yeah. There was no other picture of Tom.
No, you didn't give me any.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh well.
Oh, he was very good looking, but I never paid attention to the looks. I only cared about the core of the person, you know.
Right. Well, we're coming to the end here, Paulette. Is there anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
I think I will bore the people enough.
No, you haven't. You've led a great life, an interesting
Yeah,
life,
I
and a
really-
worthwhile life.
I look back and I think how very fortunate I've been, and the people that I met in my lifetime created this wonderful condition for me to be able to grow and prosper. You
Well,
know?
it's an interesting, as I said before, it's an interesting story how you or anybody for that matter goes from
Yes,
day
right.
of birth to where they are now, and
Yeah,
it's rarely a very straight path.
yeah. It is an incredible journey.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for making yourself
Thank
available.
you.
I've enjoyed
Well-
getting to know you and about you and your story, and
Thank you.
and I thank you for.
Oh,
for doing
I
this.
thank you. My kids would love to see that.
Well, they will get an opportunity.
They always ask me, why
Yeah.
don't you put something down?
Okay. Don't leave yet. All right.
Okay.
And so, again, if you'd like to volunteer to appear on the Seabrook Lives, you can contact me or TV Studio. Everybody's welcome. And Paulette, again, thank you. And
Welcome.
so long.